Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 8, the finale of the second season, the Queen Whoever Was. And the fanbase are going at it. This episode has been compared to Game of Thrones Season 8. It's almost like it's a trailer for Season 3 and a quick teaser for Game of Thrones and all the Easter eggs, rather than a true satisfying season finale. And we know for this season there was only 8 episodes instead of 10. And this one feels like episode 8 in a 10 episode season. It's somewhat lackluster, and season 3 is getting all the payoff. I kind of feel this finale needed something, and Raina taking Kingsland would have been the perfect ending. And you can deal with the aftermath in season 3. I don't know if the original plan was to have that when they had 10 episodes, but once they lost 2, whether that's the writer strikes, budget cuts, whatever, it just feels incomplete. And now we have to wait 2 years for season 3 that's not even filming yet. There has been many tough decisions both in front and behind the camera, and it's safe to say season 2 suffered. But at the same time, there's still a lot to like in the prior 7 episodes and even the finale. But the finale to me is kind of a disappointment. Maybe a 5 out of 10. And with how season 1 ended with Aemon killing Luke, it's definitely a step down. But what can you do? So yeah, we'll do a quick recap of everything, give you guys my thoughts. We'll start off in Essos. Tywin Lannister has been sent by Aemon to treat with the Triarchy to get ships to break the Valyrian blockade. And what's the price? Well, the Triarchy demand control of the Stepstones. They are the same faction that fought Daemon and Corlys for control of the Stepstones back in season 1. And this is not what the Crown wanted, but that's the price to pay. And also Tywin has to mud wrestle the Admiral to prove himself. And we get a few laughs when she calls him Tywin constantly and then offers him all her wives to get pregnant. It's kind of fun, and returning to Essos is always intriguing as the culture is just so vastly different to Westeros. But could have all this happened off screen? Kind of 50-50, but I'm leaning more towards yes. And many times these kind of plot elements have been left off screen and then mentioned later on in some dialogue, just to save time and keep the pacing smooth. And then over in King's Landing, Aemon knows he's no longer invincible, so he asks Helena to fly beside him on Dreamfire, who is one of the older and more powerful dragons who hatched during the reign of the Conqueror. However, Helena is no dragon warrior, and the show version she doesn't even ride. And this of course pisses Aemon off, especially once his mother sides with Helena. So he takes his anger out on Sharp Point, who own allegiance to Dragonstone. And at this point, Allison realises she's messed up by putting Aegon on the throne, and Aemon is a monster. She just wants to flee with Helena, who was happier when she wasn't queen. So of course, another secret meeting across Blackwater Bay has been arranged. This time the Queen Dowager is going to Dragonstone. I get Allison and Raina were best friends growing up, and their fallout is kind of pivotal to this story, but I understand why many people didn't like the scene at the very end of the episode. Aegon is on the mend, he'll never be whole again, and we actually learn more about his injuries, including his manhood exploding when he was burnt by his brother. And it's only getting worse and worse for Aegon, as Larys confirms the king's life is in danger because Aemon will kill him. But Larys' plan is to get him and Aegon out of King's Landing and flee to Essos, because he's moved Harrenhal's gold reserves to the Iron Bank in Braavos. And then once Rhaenyra and Aemon have burnt each other to the ground, Aegon will return glorious, as the realm's delight, as a hero, and of course Larys as his hand. And then up in the Vale, Raina has finally caught up with the wild dragon Sheepstealer, but she hasn't claimed the dragon yet. And this is broken up into about 3 different sequences. Once, when she's running around, she has to get water because she's that tired and thirsty. I think we also see her again when she sees Sheepstealer flying off, and then at the very end. And this is to emphasise her struggle and the distance that she's crossed, but it kind of feels padded out. You could have done this in 1, maybe 2 sequences. And we've had several dragon claimants so far, so you don't want to make it repetitive by having another one, but a huge part of Raina's character is everyone else, including her sister, has managed to claim a dragon, except her. She's failed in the past, and I believe she tried to claim Vermithor or Silverwing and nearly died. So why didn't you have her claim Sheepstealer now? Or are you saving that for season 3, or is this going to happen off screen? But I know many people are raging because Raina seems to be taking over the character of Nettles. And I've discussed this many times, I will just see how it pans out. Then over on Dragonstone, we have the most awkward dinner of all time, with the dragon seeds and their new queen, heir and his future betrothed or wife. Guys, I have no idea if Bela and Jace are married at this point. You actually wouldn't know they were together unless you go back to season 1, when it was announced they would be betrothed. They almost feel just like friends or siblings. They're not really a romantic pairing. But deep down, Jace is raging because he's always doubted himself and knew he was a bastard. And now you've got 3 bastards claiming dragons, and he seems to have taken this to heart. Adam seems loyal, even flew beside Rhaenyra to Harrenhal. Hugh is very reserved but respectful. However, Ulf the White is a goon, a drunk. He's enjoying himself far too much, and he's very rude. But he's also been painted as the potential troublemaker amongst the dragon seeds. So Corlys is hanging around, doing the daily shipyard inspection, but this time with Rhaenyra, and later with Alan once again. But that time, it's actually interesting. I'm invested in that story. Previous scenes felt repetitive. Every week, Corlys would go down, speak to Alan, then he'd disappear for a while. And last week, we finally got an interaction between him and his other son, Adam. And he speaks very highly of Adam as a new dragon rider. But he does not reveal their connection. Is this because he's ashamed? He doesn't want to dishonour his late wife, who he does rename the sea snake for in her honour, as the queen who never was. And he urges Rhaenyra to strike now, while she has the advantage, while she has more dragons, his fleet, and potentially an army, but he does doubt Daemon's intentions. And Corlys' fears are warranted, because up at Harrenhal, Daemon has his army, he's preparing for war, but at this point we don't actually know what his intentions are. But I want to go back to Corlys and Rhaenyra for a minute. I'm always interested in their dynamic. Corlys is bitter that her father became king, and the fact that Rhaenys was passed over. He's clearly loyal to Rhaenyra as Hand of the Queen, but I've kind of got the impression that he doesn't like Rhaenyra as a person. Perhaps that's because Rhaenyra is what Rhaenys never got to be, but I'll tell you what, I'm very interested to see how and when Corlys announces that he has bastards to his allies. But guys, I've never been a fan of the daily shipping reports between Alan and Corlys, but this episode, for once, had something I could get invested in, because Alan calls out his father. Him and his brother Adam were left to fight for survival, whilst Corlys, the richest man in the realm, never done a damn thing to help him. And only once he lost his true-born children did Corlys reach out, but it's too late. Alan is always respectful, and he will continue to serve the Velaryons, but he has had enough. He has no interest in forming a relationship with his father. I love this, because nobody has really spoken to the sea snake like this. He's just too important, too well respected. But I'm glad somebody put him in his place, because he deserved this. I get he's grieving for his children and his wife, but you cannot do this to this boy and his brother who grew up with nothing, and you could have helped them, even in secret. We'll quickly jump over, and Criston Cole is back, but he's full on nihilistic now, because he has seen Dragonfire and knows it's only time before they all burn and face oblivion. And I kind of felt this was an awkward scene. Why would Gwaine call him out about sleeping with Allison in front of all the Hightower soldiers? You wouldn't want this getting out. But let's go over to the most important stuff this episode. Daemon has finally completed the Harrenhal side quest, and for his reward he receives a vision of the past, present and future. It's a first look teaser for the brand new series called Game of Thrones, based on the books A Song of Ice and Fire. Alice Rivers takes Daemon to the Godswood, where he places his hand on the bleeding weirwood tree, and Daemon falls into a vision. He sees his great-grandson Bloodraven, also known as the Free-Eyed Raven, or the Free-Eyed Crow, Brynden Rivers, the Targaryen bastard, who trains Bran Stark to become a Greenseer. He also sees the White Walkers and the army of the dead beyond the wall. Is this the Night King? Why does he have hair? Or is it just one of the White Walker generals? He also witnesses the dead dragon, a sign of what's to come, because the dance of the dragons is the main cause the Targaryens start to lose their ultimate power, as most of the dragons die out. He also sees his own death, and the Red Comet from Season 1 of Game of Thrones, and the birth of the Mother of Dragons. When Daenerys Targaryen survives the flames, he also sees Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne, and this time it's not child Rhaenyra, it's the Rhaenyra of the present. And he believes that she must take the Iron Throne to face the coming darkness. He also sees his niece, Helena, who is a confirmed dragon dreamer. She tells him he knows how his story ends, and that he has a part to play in this. A scene that could perhaps be seen in real time, as when Aemond approaches his sister in King's Landing, it looks like she's staring off into the distance, and actually speaking to Daemon hundreds of miles away. She has seen many of the events in the Dance of the Dragons, and beyond. She tells Aemond she saw what he done to Aegon, that he burnt his brother. But Aegon will be king once more, and Aemond will die. Guys, we need a Daemon and Helena scene next season after this, If we don't get that, it's a huge missed opportunity. And at first when I'm watching this, I'm so excited, but with how Game of Thrones ends, kind of came back to reality. The prince that was promised is a huge focus on this show, but Game of Thrones cut out many of the magical elements from the book. And having Arya kill the Night King was decided because it was unexpected, whereas Jon or even Daenerys was predictable. Guys, I like what they're trying to do, but nobody's forgetting that how one of the greatest TV shows of all time ended so poorly, and how it disrespected many of its iconic characters. But now Daemon is fully loyal to Rhaenyra, he bends the knee in front of his army, and they do the same. Rhaenyra even says that he is starting to speak like her father. He even says winter is coming, which maybe is cringe, I don't know, I'll leave that to you. But just don't ask him about the vision involving his mother. But it's not just Daemon that's changed, Rhaenyra has become a changed woman. She was always rebellious as a child, she continued that in later life, but she's always held firm to her father's wishes for her to succeed him. But even when she declared herself queen against Aegon, she was very hesitant to go to war. She was wanting to win through peace, and use her dragons as a deterrent, rather than burn cities to the ground. And even after losing Luke, all she wanted was Aemon's head, nobody else. And even for the majority of Season 2, she was going down the same approach. But now, the Dragon Queen is awoken. Last week she led many dragon seeds to their own death, and now she planned on sending her new riders against Old Town and Lannisport, and even those close to her concerned, especially Baela. And I am very, very interested to see how far down the dark side Rhaenyra will go in later seasons, especially now that Daemon has declared her as the true queen, and that she needs to keep the throne for the realm to survive the coming darkness. Will she see herself as the prince that was promised, and will do anything to cling on to that? Ms. Arya, who is also in the Rhaenyra supporter club, once again reaffirms Rhaenyra's cause is just. I am really, really excited to see where they go with the character once she takes King's Landing, and what she'll do to keep it. We just need to be extremely careful with the comparisons to Mad Queen Daenerys in Season 8. And speaking of Season 8, many compare the last few sequences to Season 8 itself. Allison has snuck across the water and has come to see Rhaenyra in Dragonstone. She admits her mistakes about making Aegon king and how she treated Rhaenyra, and she's willing to leave King's Landing open for her once friend to take, as long as her and her children are allowed to leave unharmed. But Rhaenyra is not having this. There's no way Aegon and Aemond are allowed to live. I imagine Rhaenyra will allow Helaena and her daughter to live, but no way, the boys have to die and be seen executed as traitors. They also discuss their childhood and how Allison wished she had the freedom Rhaenyra had, and even admits that she's got a lover, which is so hypocritical for how she treated Rhaenyra for doing the same. But in the end, Allison agrees to help Rhaenyra and will do what she can to make King's Landing defenceless when Rhaenyra's forces take the city. Then cue the montage of armies marching towards war, Hightowers backed up by Prince Daeron, the fourth child of Alicent and his dragon Tessarion. The Stark army of 2,000 Greybeards cross the Twins. Jason Lannister leads his army with Harrenhal in the distance, ready to face Daemon and the River Lords. Tyland leads the Triarchy fleet across the Narrow Sea, whilst Corlys returns to his ship. Raina faces down Sheepstealer. Randomly Otto Hightower is a prisoner, unsure whether that's the Blacks or Larys, because remember Aemond wanted Otto back his hand. Aegon flees King's Landing with Larys, and we get wide shots of both Rhaenyra and Allison to Dragonstone. Major teaser for what's to come, but that's 2 years away. And I'll reaffirm my point that Season 2 feels incomplete. They should have ended with Rhaenyra taking King's Landing. That should have been the finale, not the beginning of Season 3. But that's the hand we've been dealt. I think this episode was disappointing, but it had a few shining moments, and Daemon's vision will be talked about for years to come. And it's opened the door for many more magical elements in the future. But guys, this is not Season 8 level. I think the hate has been overblown, but I also understand many critiques, and I agree with many. But I'm sure that's all going to change when Season 3 airs, the dragons are dancing, and then people start to complain it's going too fast, it's got nothing but mindless action. But this would not be the Game of Thrones community if the fans were doing more fighting than the actual characters on the show. But I want you guys to post your thoughts on this episode, on the finale, and Season 2 as a whole. But no matter what, we'll all be back for Season 3. It's going to open with a huge banger. But before all that, plenty more videos on the channel now the season's over. If you have any suggestions, let me know. But for now, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.